All right. Well, welcome back to our, have we named it or are we just calling it Sisters Podcast? I'm
Eh,
not sure.
We've just been calling it a sisters podcast for now.
Perfect. All right. Well, welcome back. My name is Teresa and I'll
And
let
I'm
Tammy,
Tammy.
Tammy. And so we are sisters and we've started this podcast, selfishly, I think for ourselves because we're just loving living not quite yet in the same province, but within a few hours. And so this is just a great way for us to have our own conversations and follow our own meanderings and share it with people who are interested. So I think that's great. So first of all, cheers, Tammy, to
The
another
end of work.
end of work. And so aptly, the conversation we want to talk about today is how do we you know, first of all, why is it important that we find a way to break our task focused brain? We're both very task focused. Not to say we aren't balanced. We have a great balance, and we could do a different podcast on, things like the Myers-Briggs or, a lot of those other spaces that we are both very balanced between task and people, which is great. But we're definitely very task focused. And so how do we, why is it important to take those breaks? And then how do we take those breaks, what we're affectionately calling creative nothingness. So, and then before we end the conversation, when do you know, what does your body feel like? When do you know when you have not taken enough creative nothingness breaks?
I like that term, creative nothingness, because I mean, in both of our jobs in both of our worlds, we became the queen of multitasking, or we thought it was multitasking. But multitasking doesn't actually exist. Like, your brain can't actually do two things at one time. We just get really good at switching between, tasks or whatever. Um, and we think we're great at it, but it actually slows you down. Like, it actually can cause, that mental fatigue and that brain tired. And so learning to pause has certainly benefited, for sure.
Yeah. And I think we see it especially more and more now where, the world is getting so much faster and technology, and now it's created in our brains. And I'm sure there's lots of research out there that it's created in our brains, this need to have all of the stimulation, right? So we'll often see, I know, when my adult children are visiting, or even some of my friends, or even I see it sometimes in ourselves, you know, I'll have my laptop, I'll be puttering at some work at the same time as watching a movie, having subtitles on. And I look over at my spouse and he's doing the same thing, but he's also browsing, the internet, or like we're no longer just doing one thing at a time, let alone nothing at a time.
Right. Our brains have become so stimulated all the time that it needs the next hit of stimulation all the time. It really, our cognitive function has become in that space, that instant gratification, that constant need for something. And that's just your brain. It's not how we were built. It's what our brain, as the best computer in the world, has learned how to do based on, all the extra. And I'll put it out there that, places like social media, movies, advertisements, they know how to catch your brain. There's scientists that want your brain to be multitasking and doing all of these things because it's what gives them their money.
Yeah.
But it's creating that space within us that we need to, like, how do you then know that you've really spent that one-on-one time? I love putting down everything now, and when I'm with somebody, the phone doesn't come out. Whereas before, I wasn't even thinking that it was a problem.
Right. So before we get into what are we doing to create creative nothingness, um, I think many people that are listening and ourselves as well, we would recognize that task brain and the need to be always switched on a task does have some impairments. It does cause some things that we may not be aware of that will impact and actually do the reverse of what we think it's doing. So to your point, multitasking is kind of a misnomer, right? So we know that things like cognitive restoration, if we're not taking that break and we're not taking a moment to stop always tasking and problem solving and trying to make decisions, it actually, like, taking the break increases that reset. And we know that it's going to, if we keep going or if we do take the reset, it will help us with our memory. It's going to provide a better focus and it's going to provide decision making. So we know that one. The second of the three that I was thinking of is it certainly gives a creative boost. So when we take that moment, it allows a boost to your creativity because there's a lot of research out there that shows that when our brain is not problem solving, that is often the space that we are most creative. And in fact, gosh, I wish I had written it down, but I watched a bit of a YouTube documentary yesterday, in fact, about somebody in the States who, you know what, we should make it a conversation. I'll do some research, but they had done a whole bunch of research on the different levels of state and what levels of state we're in and where we're our most creative, where you actually can start to build a space of, intuition and ESP by lowering yourself deeper into a different states. Let's do some research and find that one. And then the third one is the nonstop. When we're nonstop work, it actually reduces our performance. So it actually isn't doing what we think it's doing. So
Yeah, and I think that there's a reason why we don't like white noise or white space, I call it. I remember being asked that, how do we get somebody else to put white space in the calendar so that people get a rest? And, my response was, how do you do it? Can you do it? And we don't, because our brains need to be stimulated so often with other things, or then sometimes people are not able to get into just having that quiet space in their brain. So we have to fill it with stuff. We have to fill it with stuff so that, or we've got this thing that, we have to accomplish. If we don't accomplish, we're not good enough. So there's all of those reasons as to why we don't. So I love focusing on the how do we? How do we?
and
Because it's so important.
yeah, and before we go there, let me give you two funny stories as far as why do we have a hard time with this. So the first funny story you and I will understand, but let's share it anyway for other people, is that I can vividly remember anytime there was a commercial on the TV, right? And I can see you laughing because you know where I'm going. A commercial could not happen in our house without our mother saying, okay, quick, everybody run around and pick up 5 things, or quick, we there was no down space. It was, okay, quick, it's a break, everybody, pick up 5 things and put them in the basket, or pick up 5 toys, or let's fold the clothes, or like something had to fill the space. You couldn't just take that time to go to the bathroom and have conversations or just watch the commercials. You had to get up and do things.
I don't know
Further
what
to
parents do now with no commercials.
so so let me take that a step further. When I can remember again quite vividly the conversation when mom came to visit us, and with having 2 young boys at home, and we lived rural, and they were probably, I'll say, 12 and 13, just for argument's sake, and they were sleeping in. And our mother, who's very task focused as well and likes to get stuff done and productive, and just an exceptional heart, but an exceptional work ethic, would have had a real hard time with the fact that her and I would be out there working in the garden. And where's the boys? Those boys should be up. They should be, they shouldn't be sleeping in. They should be out here giving us a hand. Again, it was that need to, not only do we have to be busy, but if we're going to be busy, everyone needs to be busy. And then my third story is my ex-partner and And I would start the conversation in the morning on a regular basis without realizing the impact. What do we want to do today? And I remember at one point he said, "Why do we have to do anything?" And that stayed with me. Why do we have to do anything to try to change my upbringing that we always have to be doing something? To stop and say, "You're right. It's okay. I don't have to feel guilty that I didn't get something done, that I did nothing. And it's okay to do nothing. It's okay to build in that rest time." So those are three
Abs-
little
you know,
anecdotes there.
absolutely. And I mean, and you know that I work all day, and then I had a business at nighttime. And in January, the business came to an end abruptly, unexpectedly. And, a very good friend of mine, he said, "Isn't it going to be nice for you to wake up tomorrow and not have to think about something?"
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, wow, yeah, actually. And it's been since that day that spontaneity really has come in, and the importance of white space, because I nobody ever said that to me before. Everybody always encouraged the extra or whatever, but yeah. So it's pretty cool to get into that space where I can enjoy it.
Yeah, that it's okay. It's okay to do nothing. So why don't I kick off with one of the things I've started doing recently. So most of my day is spent like this, headset on. Like many people who work from home, your entire day is spent oftentimes in front of people, engaging, switching. You literally have minutes between meetings. You're having a topic, you switch to the next topic, you switch to the next topic, you switch to the it can be very mentally fatiguing at the end of the day when you've had to switch entire different topics, different people, different conversations, and there's no that built-in time if we worked in an office of walking to a place, having a conversation before a meeting or after a meeting is now gone, and it's just instantly switch, 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 switch. So what I started to do is, I have started trying to engage my creative space, and I downloaded an app. I forget what it's called, like Zen Color. So not a plug, but so I downloaded Zen Color, and it allows me to just do paint by numbers on my phone. So I don't think I can show you here. So I've done a whole bunch of them, but they're things that if I just need to take a minute or 2 minutes, I can go into a painting that I've already started, and I can just s- take away whatever's going on outside my body and just spend some time creating, like having this black and white image come to color. And it could take me all day to do one painting because I might take 1 minute here, 2 minutes there. But it's just allowing me to create some of that creative space. Now, it could also mean I'm trying to fill white space with doing something. So I need to be cognizant of that. But I think it also is building in the ability for me to just you know, not feel like I have to fill it with something else. I can just sit and color or draw or doodle. I guess we would have doodled, before we had our apps, we would have had a blank page and we would have just doodled, right?
Yeah. And I think you're right that, sometimes we replace the task with something that we feel is relaxing because it does let our brain rest and stuff. For me, a few years back when I went through a little bit of, the mental health challenges, I couldn't even take a deep breath without a panic attack. And so for me, it became, how do I just deep breathe for a couple of minutes? A- And that now, so I have a really good routine. I wake up in the morning, have my breakfast, I will journal, and then I lay down or I sit still quiet. Nothing on in the house, just the sound of the heat pump, an alarm on. That's it. 20 minutes. And I love it. I just love being able to like be in my breath. And it's a really cool space sometimes because your brain will come and thoughts come, and I just simply go, "Hey, I love you, but you don't belong here right now," and just let it go.
How long did it take you to get to 20 minutes? Because I remember the first time I tried to do meditation, it was at a retreat that I was running, and we had somebody come in and take us through a meditation. And they explained it like you have a brand new puppy and you're trying to get the puppy to sit. And the puppy will sit and then jump around and bounce around. And like, no, bring the puppy back and sit. And the puppy will go and do it. And then, no, bring the puppy back and sit. 20 minutes to me sounds like I, uh, kudos to you if you can get your brain, your puppy to sit for 20 minutes.
I think that
Uh,
this is a great conversation follow on actually to this kind of sequence of,
yeah.
filling the white and not filling the white noise, but like, that
How do you
creative
get the puppy to
nothingness.
sit?
How do you get the puppy to sit? Another thing that I do is I like every Sunday I sit in the bathtub and I used to put music on. Now
Yeah.
nothing, nothing. Like
Yeah.
it's sometimes we have to learn. And I used to hate being in quiet because my brain would talk to me and I'm like, shush up. I want to be like silent. So I think that that's a good conversation for another day because I think I could go on for a long time.
So let's do that. How to get the puppy to sit. We'll do that one for sure in the future. One of the other things, I mean, living rurally, for me, this may sound a little ridiculous, especially for those of our families and friends and extended that are in the city. But I just like to pick up sticks. Frankly, I will go outside and pick up sticks in my forest, like our bush around the house, and I just pick them up and make piles. They may never get picked up from the pile. It doesn't matter. It just for me, it's just going out there. I'm in nature. Sometimes I have a podcast, sometimes I'm just listening to the birds, but it's just those rudimentary tasks, right? So whether it's sitting there gardening and just pulling out weeds in the garden for an hour, whether it's picking up sticks, whether it's people, some people like to just get out and rake. Other people, for my husband, it's getting out on the zero tone and just mowing the grass. With 10 acres, it takes a while to mow our grass, but that's his space. He just drives around. That's his meditation, I guess. He just drives around. He's doing the grass. So whether it's something that's creative and just gets the creative parts of our body going, whether it's something that's quiet and teaches us to quiet our mind, whether it's something that is just getting out in nature, putting your hands in dirt, walking on grass barefoot. Like there's lots of things we can do to just kind of quiet the mind, depending on where we are physically and how much time we have to do that.
And sometimes it's just about going from a task brain to something that's just more fun. And so I've, most recently picked up gaming again. And,
Yes.
and I'll game with my kids across Canada on the Xbox. And I'm like, bring out the Mortal Kombat because I am ready to like rumble, or I want to build a farm with my granddaughter. So like there is something in just not task, and just enjoying that. Something that's self-care, reading, right? Music, dancing around the house, time with friends, something that's not task so that your brain just doesn't think as heavy all the time. That I think is your key.
I think so too. We've most recently just started playing music on the YouTube channel on our TV. And so I know it's getting close to the end of my day working upstairs here in my loft when I hear, my husband has put on the music as his signal to say, all right, it's getting close. It's time to you to start shifting your brain. And it does absolutely that. It allows me to start shifting my brain from a work task focus to getting ready for my long commute, which is walking all the way downstairs. So, but it's a signal, right? It's that
But it
signal
is.
that says it's time to start switching that brain and starting to move yourself away from whatever it is you're trying to solve, the deep complexities of work, to come home and start to switch the brain. So
And I think that's really important, especially for those who work from home all the time, is how do you switch? Because otherwise everything is so close at hand that you could just keep working all night and you'll lose track of your time. And so you have to put that signal on, whether it's an alarm, music, something fun. You have to have something to like just take that time. And I love you know, um, I put an alarm on my phone for every 45 minutes, or I have a workout now. I have my TRX hanging on my office door for when I work from home, and I close the door anytime I go out. I have to work out before I go back in, and it's not about filling time. It's just about doing something that is breaking
changes.
breaking the brain from being on that task all the time. That's just this, do whatever and then just jump back in. It's a 20 seconds, 30 seconds, but something you really to get, and being mindful of each of those times. So
Awesome. So let's, why don't we wrap up our creative nothingness? We've come up with some good ideas for some future podcasts too, which I kind of liked, that we can kind of delve into. But why don't we end it there? I hope everybody's finding a way to add creative nothingness to your day, whether that's 2 minutes in between meetings, whether that's getting up at lunch, something. Start small and just start something. It doesn't have to be the laying still for 20 minutes that I would struggle with, but I'm up for the challenge, and I will endeavor to try to do that without falling asleep, to keep my puppy in the sit position. Until then, I'll just keep doing some creative nothingness, and I hope you do too.
always have a great night.
Okay, talk to you
Okay.
later.
All right.
Bye
Bye.
bye.